Today we are traveling from Washington Dulles to Toronto, Canada. If you want to know how we got here, I'll put a link here to the video, my first trip on an Airbus A380. When we arrived at Dulles Airport, we went to a Marriott hotel close by. We stayed the night there. I didn't vlog that one as we were tired. And the next day we picked up a rental car and we drove to the Great Falls Park. And the Great Falls National Park is as the name suggests, it has a great fall, a waterfall that is, and the entrance to the park is $20. The park itself is located on the Virginia side of the Potomac River, which acts like a natural border between Virginia and Maryland, the states that is. The park has a large parking lot and a visitor center, which was closed at the time when we visited, unfortunately. And there are several hiking trails that start from here, but we're lazy. We're just going to walk to the overlooks close to the parking lot. There's free to choose from on this side of the park, on this side of the river. The river itself is 405 miles long, that is 652 kilometers, and it starts in Fairfax Stone in West Virginia. This is the north branch. There's also a south branch that originates in the Monterey, Virginia. These come together in Green Springs, West Virginia, and the Potomac River flows all the way down here past the Great Falls and ends into the Chesapeake Bay past Washington DC. The Great Falls were just beautiful to look at. It's massive. It's you always can't get across the scale of it on video, but we really enjoyed the stay there. It was a nice day, and just looking at the water rush by, it's just very relaxing. So we're happy to have stopped here. The next day I spent visiting the historical battlefield sites of the Battle of Monocacy. I'm sure I butchered that name, but it's not the first time I butchered the name, so get used to that. Several battles in the Civil War took place here at where the Monocacy River comes close to the town of Frederick, Virginia, and the battle was in 1864. My tour starts at the Visitor Center. The Visitor Center has a small museum upstairs that takes you back and explains very well what happened here. There's some great photographs here. There's an automated map that is telling you of the battles, so absolutely worth a short visit. In short, what happened was that the Confederate Army was very successful in this area and were threatening to attack Washington DC. The Union Army chose this spot here at the Monocacy River as the most logical stop to try and stop and delay the Confederate Army in their march up to Washington DC. The Union troops were outnumbered more than 2-1, and on Saturday, the 9th of July, the fighting started, and by the end of the day, the Union forces lost 1,300 men, wounded, killed, or captured, and the Confederates between 700 to 1,000 men. The Union forces had to retreat to Baltimore, making this battle a Confederate win. But it came at a price, as the Confederates marched on to Washington DC. They were tired, of course, of this battle, and more importantly, DC had time to reinforce. When they clashed close again to DC, it was too much for the Confederate Army, and that ended in defeat for the Confederates, who then had to retreat back to Virginia. And this is what makes this Battle of Monocacy so important, as this was the closest the Confederates ever came to capturing Washington DC. From the Visitor Center, you can take a self-guided tour. You download an app to the telephone, and then you can listen to the stories as you visit 5 stops in this area, which were significant on that day back in 1864. I won't take you through the whole tour, but I'll say how important it is to preserve history like this. Being there, standing in the fields, brings very close to understanding the day's events and what the troops and generals had to deal with, and of course the civilians living there. For me personally, at one stop at a farm, there was a picture. It just there in the grass of some huts down a field in front of this farm. And that is where the slaves were housed. For me, standing there in a field on a very hot day with bugs all over me really brought back home the inhumanity of slavery and of how miserable it was. Of course, it's something I know intellectually, but just standing there brought a bigger understanding. It's just very hard to explain, but hopefully you understand what I mean. It brought tears to my eyes of how evil humans can be. The last trip I made was a bit more north in Maryland, where the first monument honoring George Washington was built in 1827. George Washington, of course, I'm talking about the George Washington, the Revolutionary War general, founding father and the first US president. Washington died in 1799, so that's 28 years before the monument was completed. It was built by the citizens of Boonesboro, which is a nearby town here at the monument. The monument it's not impressive monument-wise, but of course it was built by the citizens of a small town, more a labor of love. It's 12 meters high. It actually was used as a lookout tower in the Civil War, and has a great view over the valley. Later on, it was vandalized and rebuilt back in 1936. Again, there's a small visitor center to visit here, which was closed. I think visitor center always seems to close when I come close. And it's a beautiful park here, barbecue spots and hiking trails. So it's also a very nice place to visit. It's very beautiful up here in these mountains. After returning our rental car at the rental car station, which is about 2 miles from the airport, we had to wait for about 15 minutes on a bus that would take us from the rental station to the terminal building at Washington Dulles Airport. We arrived twice this year at Washington Dulles Airport, and it's quite interesting to see it now from the other side going in instead of coming out, because we never departed from Dulles Airport before. So this is the first time we're going to depart from Dulles Airport. We're flying with United Airlines, and we're going to look for a backdrop there, and we're going to Toronto. So that's going to be an interesting flight. So what is special about Washington Dulles is that the main terminal building, where you have the arrivals and departures, has no gates. The gates are at the terminal buildings, which are connected by the mobile lounge. And if you know, in a previous vlog, I said that the mobile lounges were designed by Iren Sarin, the same architect that designed the TWA terminal at JFK, which is now the TWA Hotel at JFK. But he also designed this terminal and this concept of having a main building and then connecting them with mobile lounges to the gates where the airplanes are parked. It makes also more sense to me now to understand where all this the bare concrete and stuff is coming from. I didn't know this terminal was designed by Iris Sarin until just recently. So now I'm noticing sort of the design trademarks of the architect. It's quite interesting. Security was a breeze. As you can see, it really wasn't busy today. We were oblivious of the fact that there was an air train connecting the terminals, so we thought we solely had to rely on the mobile lounge. And as we can see, we also found out there is a walkway connecting the terminals. We stick to the original plan, and I'm going to look for the mobile lounge, which are fun anyway as you go across the concourse and at the platforms. The mobile lounges aren't easy to drive. Our poor driver attempted 3 times to dock the mobile lounge. One of his colleagues parked his mobile lounge at an angle which made it very hard for him to get the docking docked, so to say. He did eventually did it to a small round of applause. He was embarrassed, which I can understand, but he got us there. I resigned to the fact that there would be no lounge today, and we are flying first class on this short flight to Toronto. But we have no status with United, and you need status to get into the lounge or buy lounge access, which I won't do, of course. But my wife then said, well, actually we're flying international, so you should have lounge access if you're going to fly first class international, despite it being on a small Embraer. We checked it, and she was correct. We did have lounge access. The lounge was actually pretty great. It was on eye level with the planes, nice big windows, so we enjoyed our short time there with a cup of coffee and looking at the planes. It was a short walk towards a gate. Unfortunately, once again, I could not get a nice angle of the outside of the airplane. Our airplane today is an Embraer 175 LR, which stands for long range, and that will take us to Vancouver on this short 1-hour flight. Got a quick glance there of the seats we are sitting in. We're in the first row. It's a 2-1 configuration in a domestic first class on United, and 2-2 for the rest of the plane in economy. So yeah, a bit of overkill for a 1-hour flight, but again, we booked very early, so the price was quite reasonable. So after takeoff, we did a 180 turn heading towards Toronto. We took off towards the south, and there's nothing left to do but to sit back and enjoy the flight. There's no food in this on the short flight. There is a drink service, and I don't think we were even offered a snack with it. There's one thing that always keeps me wondering when flying in the US. The shades are down as you board the aircraft. I understand that this is to keep the plane cool due to the heat of the many locations that we do visit. But once taken off, people in generally keep the shutters down, and that is something I don't understand. I enjoy looking towards the clouds, look at the ground. I've flown hundreds of times and I do still enjoy it, so every time I fly I will open my shutter. Of course, it's common courtesy, if the sun is pouring in through the window, towards those around you. If the light is bothering them, of course I'll close it. But in general, that's not the case. You can see your telephones, your iPads, your laptops with the shutter open. It's also very strange that the cabin crew turn the lights down, because actually it would be better in the cabin if the lights are on during a day flight. So let me know in the comments, if there's a reason for keeping the shades down that I have missed or I'm not aware of. Legroom, well, this is first class, so it's a bit more than in economy class. Some people do ask me, I see you sitting in the first row a lot of the times. Why don't you sit in the second row? Because then you can stretch out with your legs underneath the seat in front of you, which of course you can't do sitting on the front row. My answer to that is I had happened twice to me now that somebody has basically reclined into my lap. So I prefer sitting like this on a short flight than have somebody recline into my space really. So yeah, that's the reason why I'll take the slight extra discomfort of sitting on the first row.
Off the seatbelt sign. Use caution when opening the overhead bins as items may.
It was a smooth and uneventful, good enough for that, flight from Dulles to here in Toronto. Got a nice, brief glimpse into the cockpit from where, as we were disembarking the plane. It's always fun. This is the first time for me at Toronto Airport. So, is there a train? Is there a bus? Is there a long walk? What are the procedures here? Despite the close proximity of the US towards Canada, of course, it's two different countries. So we are going to have to cross the border here. Well, it ended up being a long walk towards the border. control. The control was very thorough. We're even asked aside to do a double check, but of course everything was okay. So we're free to enter Canada. First time for me to be here. Going downstairs now to collect luggage and exit the airport. Well, in generally at an airport, the garages for the car rental are either on-site in the general parking garage, or they're off-site and the shuttle will take you there. In this case here at Toronto, it's on-site in a parking garage, so it was a walk towards there. We've collected our rental car and going to head towards our final destination here in Canada. I'll keep it a secret what that is going to be, so do watch the next week's or in 2 weeks time the next vlog on our trip here in Canada. So once again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.